Okay, so today we're going to be talking about definitions and terms associated with motion. All right, so two terms you're going to need to know is distance and displacement. They're very similar, but there's a distinct difference. So distance is simply the length a path an object takes. And then displacement is the distance from that object's starting point to its end point. So what do I mean by the difference? So if I travel 10 miles west, turn around and travel 10 miles east, you can say the distance I traveled was 20 miles because I went 10 miles in one direction and 10 miles in the other direction. So that's my total length of travel. Whereas my displacement, since I'm kind of ending at the same spot that I started, my displacement would be 0. All right, so speed. Speed is a measurement of distance over time. The faster my speed, the more distance I'm covering in a shorter amount of time. So distance divided by time. So examples would be miles per hour or miles divided by hours, meters per second, meters divided by seconds. You could also calculate the average speed by dividing the distance traveled by the time taken. So this is how you calculate an average speed, not necessarily an exact speed. So velocity is similar to speed, but it also indicates a direction. So what do I mean by that? So it might not be 30 meters per second, but it might be 30 meters per second north. Now, usually in a physics class, we're going to indicate the direction by indicating whether or not the speed or the value is positive or negative, whereas positive would be one direction and negative would be the opposite direction. Okay, so you can graph velocity by setting your distance as your dependent variable along the y-axis and your time as your independent variable along the x-axis. So your velocity is indicated by the slope of the line. So you see that this line has a very shallow slope here, and it's moving in the positive direction or upwards. So it's going to have a small positive velocity, whereas this line is very steep. It's heading very quickly in the negative direction. So it's going to have a very large negative velocity. Okay, acceleration. So acceleration is the measurement of velocity over time, or the change of velocity over time. So it's going to be velocity divided by time, or since velocity is distance over time, it can be distance divided by time divided by time. Sometimes you'll hear it referred to as meters per second when we use units, or it could be meters per second squared. Now, you can graph the acceleration by setting your velocity as your dependent variable. So instead of distance, you have velocity along the y-axis, and time will be your independent variable. So you've got two lines here, and the same as velocity, acceleration is indicated by the slope of the line on an acceleration graph. So this line right here would be an object moving at a steady velocity since it's not really moving, but this line here shows an object increasing velocity. So this object is accelerating in a positive direction.